see, the focus was missions. And we didn't really know that until we got down there. But the mission that the students of Assemblies of God serve throughout Minnesota is Speed the Light. And what Speed the Light does is they just give towards missionaries to speed the light of the gospel, whether it's through effective communication, building radio towers, or giving them a vehicle, or if they're missionaries in like Alaska or something, or Russia maybe, they provide them with a snowmobile so they can reach the villages that they need to get to. And it's awesome every year to go and see what kids will give towards mission and pledge to give. The kids this weekend, there's about 4,000 kids, and they outgave what they gave last year. This year they gave $28,000 just on Friday afternoon. What they pledged to give throughout the year. Well, no, they didn't say that number yet. But what our goal is for this year was $1 million throughout Minnesota. It's never been done before in any state. Last year, Minnesota students gave over $600,000, and they're just equipping missionaries with the equipment that they need. It's pretty awesome to see. But the talk this weekend really made me question, and made, I think, a lot of the students, and maybe Ben and Courtney question is, what are we willing to sacrifice to give? Are we just giving out of abundance, or are we willing to sacrifice to give? What do missionaries have to sacrifice? The speakers this weekend, they gave up a lot to go and serve God. And a lot of times we're worried about giving up some money because we might have to have a pop or a Starbucks or something like that. What are we willing to sacrifice? That was one of the key themes this weekend that I got out of it. But that's what I want to ask you as we take this missions offering is, what are you willing to sacrifice? Our missionaries through Assemblies of God go throughout the world. I was looking up some stats this morning, but I'm too tired to remember them. But I don't know. Me and Ben and Courtney, we have lots of conversations and we talk about a lot of different things. And yesterday we brought up the fact of how much money actually goes to where you put it towards in a lot of different charities and different things, because there's a lot of them that spend a lot more on paying their employees than they do actually putting towards the stuff. So I looked it up when I got home last night, and 95% of the money that you put towards world missions goes actually to missionaries or supporting their cause, whereas and the other 5% is for emergency situations and administrative. A lot of places have over 50% of their funds going just towards administration and different things. So it's pretty awesome to know that 95% of whatever you give is going right to the missionaries and to the mission field. So as we take this missions offering, just ask yourself, what are we willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to give something up this week? Are you willing to give something up for a month or something like that? So, can I have Courtney, will you pray over this offering?
Oh my God, I just thank you for providing for us so that we can provide for others. And Lord, wherever you want us to give to, Lord, would that just be in our hearts? And would you just put it in our hearts, Lord, so we know that's where you want us to give to. And we each have different things on our heart that are important to us. Maybe it's quickly getting the gospel out. Maybe it's providing a cup of cold water through an organization to somebody who doesn't yet know you, and showing your kindness in that way, Lord. I just pray that whatever we give today, that we would be extremely trusting that you will use it for your love. Amen.
Amen. as they go out, you students that went, you want to come up and these students went and I think everyone had fun. It was really an awesome weekend, and what they did this year, their focus was missions, like I said. Usually every year at NYC we get t-shirts so they can have something to wear and everything all year. This year they decided not to give out t-shirts. What they did with the money that they would have had from the t-shirts, they put towards the fact that some students at NYC, there's two different options for like a mission type thing that we could do. And one was Feed My Starving Children, and students at NYC prepared over 100,000 meals for Feed My Starving Children this weekend. And what we did is we went to a Eurasia experience, which just kind of gave these guys an opportunity to see what the Arab world is like. We went through what it would be like going through customs in the Arab marketplace, and then into like a holy place setting where you could see from the beginning there's total segregation as there is in most of the Arab world. Women went down one path and the guys went down another, and then when we got into the holy place, women sat in the back, guys were in the front. And I guess I'll just let them tell what they got from the experience, and then I'll probably bore you some more.
Say your name, so everybody knows.
I'm Hannah Larson, and I think the thing I got most from the experience is when one of the talkers that was talking about how he gave up all of his money and stuff like that, and he has children and he tries to put tries to put God before everything, and he goes around the world helping people that don't know who God is, and he goes to very dangerous places to tell people about God.
I'm Jennifer Weber, and the things that I got most out of it was you got to see what it was like in Asia and how they treated different people and how they treated Christians. And they had people that were like representing Christians in Asia. They had them locked in jail cells, and it really got to me because how different they treat people there and the segregation of everyone.
Good morning. My name is Devin Brewer. I think what I got most out of it was when you remember God, people lives. But whenever you remember yourself and forget God, people die. Mainly because he was, the guy that said this was, for most of his life, from I think he said 12 to 18, he was not going down a good path. He was doing drugs, alcohol, wasn't really living for God, never really knew who God was. He was driving home from a bar one day when he was 20, and he said that God it just hit him, that God kills bad people. He immediately then turned to God. He was doing everything he dropped everything he wanted to do and went to God. The church that he was going to was a bunch of elder saints. They didn't really have a lot of youth. So he was the only one they considered real youth in the church. So he came to the church and he started the Speak of Life. What he did was he started by collecting cans, and then he went to a convention, I think is what he said, and he gave his life to Christ and to missions. He sold his house, his truck, and he had everything but a sleeping bag, 2 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and an old cowboy hat, and his Bible. That's all he had whenever he left the United States. Now he travels across the world, the Eurasia, all in that area. He does that for a cause of teaching people how to live by God's standards and how to relate their lives to Christianity and how to become a follower. He said this, and he also shared a story about his kid. His kid was born with one kidney. Well, the doctors told him not to go to any dangerous place that could harm health. What he decided he was going to do, they were going to an area deep in the mountains of, I think, Afghanistan. Somewhere over there. But yeah, he went over there. His kid only had one kidney. The doctor told him not to go. They prayed over it overnight, and they wound up going. I think he said a few years later they were leaving. They went to a hospital and getting checked out. His kid now has 2 kidneys. And that's what I got most of it. Whenever you remember God and go for what God says and what He wants, people live. But when you get selfish and greedy, people die.
Well, kind of just to take the back 1 second. Sorry. The best part was either the Eurasia experience or that illusionist, I would say. That was pretty cool. But, yeah, the segregation in the Eurasia thing, that was pretty cool. Like, not cool, but...
My name is Mike, and I went with on the MYC trip. And the thing that I mostly got from it was what Devin said, to forget God. People don't get to learn about Him, they die and everything. And if you remember him, people live. And we got told a story about one of the missionaries, about this one guy in India or something like that, 2 guys, something like that. And they turned their lives to God, and their family disowned them, beat them, half to death, and left them. And they said they're now allowed back into their families. And one day they're getting on top of a bus to go somewhere, and they turned around so their face wouldn't get hit by the cold wind. And there's rocks and trees hanging over a cliff, and both of them knocked the bus. And though one guy's friend, he survived, but the other guy wasn't so fortunate. A rock hit his head and took his head right off. And we got told about that guy that got killed. He told his nephew that God told him he's going to die in a few days, and that he wants his nephew to learn about God and speak the gospel after when he's gone. And he ended up dying on the road. And the other friend that got knocked off, he got knocked in the head and fell off the bus. And the doctor said you can't do anything else like speak the gospel. If someone keeps on beating you up and hit your head, you are going to die. But he kept on doing it, and he's still around today. But I got that from there, and I thought it was a pretty good message out of that. And I just liked how everyone else was speaking through the segregation thing when we went through Eurasia. I thought that was pretty cool, looking at the different culture stuff, like all the clothing and stuff. But I thought it was sort of harsh because we walked past a jail cell, and there was people screaming for food and everything. And the guards were banging on the fences to keep everyone quiet. And they were selling goats' heads and food like that, spices, hookahs, different kind of stuff that you don't really see over here. And at the gate where you get in, if you didn't have your passport, you got questioned by a guard, and the guard would just yell at you, get in your face and everything, and it would be sort of scary to be yelled at him. But yeah, it was a really fun time, and we learned about this one girl that turned to Christ in I think it was India or something like that. But when her family found out she was learning about God, they beat her and disowned her, and they locked her up and basically said that you're going to believe in our God and not the other gods. And she still turned back to God in those moments. She prayed and just thought of Him, and she got through everything. yeah, that's what I learned.
My name is Ben, and I guess the biggest thing I learned, I didn't learn from any of the speakers there, but I learned that God answers even the small, kind of silly prayers like the ones that you make at 3 o'clock in the morning when somebody in the room is snoring. I'm a really light sleeper. I don't sleep well when noises are happening, so Devin is snoring loudly. And I couldn't take it, and I just lay there and said, God, please let him stop snoring so I can sleep and function this week. And as soon as I finished praying, Devin stopped snoring. It wasn't a second afterwards, he just quiet.
You've been snoring for hours.
Yeah. So yeah, I learned that God even, they always say God answers your prayers just in His way and in His time, and that's true. It's just obvious that sometimes His way and His time are exactly what you want.
Hi, my name is Courtney, and I was one of the chaperones, the only female chaperone on this trip. We had 3 guy students and for 2 male chaperones and 6 girl students for 1 female chaperone. But it was a lot of fun. I was so impressed with these students and how they represented your church well. I was kind of concerned. Students can be crazy, but these guys they did really well. They were super respectful and just so kind the whole weekend. One thing that I have a lot of notes written down, like a fraction of what I learned this week, but I learned just as much as the students did. And your age has nothing to do with how much you can learn from an experience. So this wasn't just for the students, this was for every leader that was there too. And I want to say some things about what the speaker said too, but one thing that we got the privilege to do was, the first day that we were there, we saw a homeless man, and we thought, okay, we need to do something for him, and so we decided we were going to pray for him. But we were also going to run into Savers and the Dollar Tree to get some stuff that we needed, and we decided that we also wanted to get him some physical needs to provide for him. So we went into the store and got toothbrush, toothpaste, socks, granola bars, stuff like that, and put it in a bag, and we bought him a Bible too, and we went over to where he was before, and he was gone. And I was like, okay, I hope that we still get to have this experience, but if it isn't, then Lord, just show us another homeless person or somebody else in need that we can give these items to and pray for. And it was 2 days later that we were leaving the hotel, and Ben and I were driving some students, and we were trying to get to the mall where we were going to go to the food court and eat. And we got lost, and we went to the wrong place, and we turned around a corner, and we pulled into the Walgreens parking lot to call Patrick, and the same homeless man was standing there. And the incredible thing is that day as we were leaving the hotel room, I said, I think we're going to see him again. And I said, just keep your eyes open just in case if we see any person who needs us. And he was standing right there again. And we got to go up and we got to talk to him, pray for him, and give him some stuff. And it was just really good to be able to show him our love. And just one little thing that he said to us was that he's been struggling. His name is Dave, and he said he's been struggling with Christianity, and he feels really hurt because he's in this situation. He thinks that God isn't providing for him. But he said that his mother was very sick, and he prayed one day, Lord, just take her because she's suffering. And the very next week, she died. And he said that was God to him. And he's still struggling with God right now, but he was thankful for God's provision in that time. And I'm just really glad that we got to help somebody in a tangible way. There are a lot of homeless people that we know of in Ortonville, and so we're glad that we got that experience in a bigger town. Some things that I did learn from the convention itself. I'm sorry, I'm a talker. I love to talk, so but I want to share some things that I learned. We listened to 2 speakers. One of the guys' names was Joe Gordon, and the other one's name was Dick Brogdon. And one one thing that Joe said to us is that Jesus didn't save you just to take you to heaven. That's not the only reason that he saved you. Because if he had saved you just to take you to heaven, as soon as you would have given your life to him, you would have went to heaven. He saved you because he has a plan for you here on earth too. And he also stressed that if you're waiting for somebody else to lead a movement, or waiting just to do something for Jesus, if you're waiting on somebody else, you're never going to do anything for Jesus. You gotta be a mover and a shaker. You just can't wait on other people. And he also talked about how this Joe guy is the same guy that Deb was talking about. He was an alcoholic and a smoker and led a horrible lifestyle by our standards. And one day he was listening to a missionary from India, and he was very, very moved by her. And afterwards he went up and said, "Can I go to India?" And she says, "Well, sure, anybody can go to India if you work hard enough and raise your support, and if you really want to go, God has it for you, you'll go to India." And later he went to India, and one day one lady asked him, "How do you know that God called you to India?" And he said, "Well, I don't know that God called me to India, I just volunteered." And I think that's how it is for a lot of us. Some people say, "I'm just waiting for Jesus to call me to something." And Jesus will affirm it if it's the right thing. But sometimes you just got to step out and you just have to do it. You have to put yourself out there, and if it is of God, it will happen. And if it is not, it will not happen. If it is not of God, he will not allow it. But if it is, he will definitely allow it. And one thing that he also said is that volunteers fight a lot harder than draftees. And isn't that true? Some days I would run downstairs and I'd be like, "I'm going to wash the dishes for my mom." And I'd get to the bottom of the stairs and she'd be like, "Will you wash the dishes?" And I'd be like, "No, because now you asked me to." So volunteers fight a lot harder than draftees. And just remember that God is telling you that I have a place that you need to be. God has a place that you need to be. And he'll make that apparent to you. So just watch for the place that God wants you to be. Now the other speaker that we listened to, his name is Dick Brogdon. He is an incredible man. The other speaker was very, very energetic and very charismatic, I would say. He was all over the place, and then Dick came out, and he just stood there. He was I think he is a very wise man, and some people know how to get the energy up in the room, and some people know how to calm the room. And Dick definitely knew how to do that. He's the kind of person I would call stoic, calm and wise, and that you could hear a pin drop when he was talking. People had a lot of respect for him. The students were very, very respectful to him. And he said that missions, he talked a lot about missions. I mean, the whole weekend was about missions. But he said, missions means that we pray with an open Bible and an open map. Where is the church not gone yet? Where is it not established? He had a bucket of candy, and there are 4,000 students there. And he said, "I brought something to show you guys." And he took candy, and he said, "Oh, you want some candy?" He started throwing it to some students over here. And he went, "Oh, I'm sorry, do you want candy? Oh, you didn't get any?" And he goes, "Oh, let me fix that." And he kept throwing it to the exact same people. And he goes, "What makes us believe that America is the only place that needs the candy? There's so much more of the world, there's so much more than Rochester, than Ortonville, that needs the candy, the light of the world." And it is like we get candy here. I mean, we are free to worship our God. We hear about him every Sunday. In other places, if you say his name, you might be beheaded. Your family will beat you. And we need to bring food to those other countries. We need to bring the light of the world to those other countries. And so we were talking about how Spread the Light is the organization that our students are working towards to give to. Speed the Light is bring the church to places where the church is not yet established by providing necessary equipment and means of transportation. And we brainstormed on the way home from Rochester. We had 4.5 hours to do it, so we did a lot of brainstorming. I asked our students, they each wrote down a goal of how much they want to give this month. they have a challenge this month of how much they want to give form of money. And I said, all right, it's one thing to say I'm going to do it. It's another thing for me to ask you how you're going to do it. You tell me how you're going to do it. And so I said, what are some things you might give up this month to be able to give extra to Speed the Light? What are some different ideas? You know, how much you're going to get? If you have a job, how much are you going to get from that paycheck? I mean, the Lord calls us to give a certain percentage, but if we can, we should give way more than that. And we have people who are going to give up soda for a month. They're going to give up hair dye. They're going to babysit. They're going to sell some of their clothing. They're going to help their family farm. They're going to give up some of their paycheck. Ben and I have pledged to give up some of our grocery money. Some of them are going to sell old video games, ask people to donate their change, have a bake sale, just ask their family to give whatever their family is willing to do. And Patrick and Ben and I already talked last night. One of these Sundays, we're going to get the youth together, and after church, during church, we're going to sell cookies for a quarter. And every little bit helps, seriously. And so I'm just really astounded with these students and what they said they're willing to give up to give to this organization. So thank you for listening to me talk, and I'll let Patrick talk now.
I was so impressed, just like Courtney said, at how they represented themselves. Besides when they had this little squeaker thing in their mouth. No, I'm just kidding. There's a couple people I'd really like to thank. On the way home, we got a flat tire, and Mike jumped right out of the vehicle. He had the tire iron in his hand before I was even out of the vehicle, and he was ready to go. He basically changed the tire by himself. And it was pretty fun to see somebody that willing to get out and help out. And the other two that I would like to thank is Ben and Courtney. Over the last 2 months, they've given up their time and resources to help invest in these students' lives during our Alpha program. They helped, they were the leaders, and I just made food, and it was great. But I really appreciate everything that you guys have done, and I know these students appreciate it. It's everlasting impact on their lives, so thank you very much. But yeah, this weekend was amazing. Yeah, like Courtney said, it speaks to anybody that goes. But the biggest thing I got out of it was, what are you willing to sacrifice to give to God? The second speaker said, missions isn't everything, like we say it is. Missions isn't coddling little babies. Missions is going into a place where people don't know the Word. People don't have access to the Word. If there's danger, there's a chance for missions. And he said something that spoke to me, maybe just because I'm in the military, but he said, why are parents willing to send their kids to Iraq or Afghanistan to serve their country, but they're not willing to send them there to serve their God? Something to think about. What are we willing to do to invest into students' lives right now so they can be the next missionaries? Are we willing to get everything that we need in this church to speak into the lives of students? Are we willing to maybe give up a little bit more so that these students can go and learn more and do more and have more resources available to them so that they can be the hands and feet? When I was praying the other day, it just came to me like, we're supposed to be the hands and the feet for Jesus. The feet, to me, it just came to my mind like when I was praying, like, they're the ones that go, they're the ones that do it. The hands are the ones that give, so they can do it. We need to be either the hands or the feet. If we're not one of those two, then we might as well go home. So I just challenge each person to decide, do you want to be the hands or the feet? And then do it. Because if you don't, there ain't much point to it. Thank you. Guys have a wonderful week.